Hi guys, in this video we're going to be working on some skeleton spacemen.
Gruffy Crow.
So I very recently had my first game of Stargrave and it was great, and the guy on the other side of the table, whose name I forget right now, was fielding a whole Stargrave crew of these skeleton spacemen. So I tracked down where they come from. There is a sculptor on Thingiverse and also Patreon, Big Mr Tong. So shout out to Big Mr Tong. I joined his Patreon and downloaded these guys. If you join his Patreon, you can actually get access to all the back catalogue all at once. So there's a few bits and pieces I downloaded. Now I will say his stuff is a bit hit and miss. I didn't like all of it, did like some of it. So I printed these guys out at 0.03 on my Mars Pro 2, and I've been using a new resin, the Frozen 4K, and I think they've come out really nicely. Okay, and here they are all cleaned up and ready to go. There were some residual sort of supports, especially in some of these little hollow areas, but it only took me a couple of minutes just to sort of snip them out. Mostly you don't even need anything sharp, you just need to sort of take something and just poke them out. Other than that, I've not done any other cleanup, so there's no mould lines, there's no flash. Oh, there's one of the little supports. So this is all I've had to do is just knock it out. And that leaves very minimal damage to anything around it. So yeah, we've already got pre-drilled gun barrels. Yeah, it's kind of the beauty of 3D printing. So this, despite the fact these are very old school style miniatures, you've still got all those benefits. So I'm using a new resin that I've only started using recently, and I'm really impressed with it. So these guys are looking real cool. So I went and dug around for some bases, so old school sort of Games Workshop style 25mm slotters. These ones are D&G ones. I quite like the D&G ones. They tend to have a little bit more quality about them than some of the other random base manufacturers. And these slot into there like an absolute dream. Okay, so we'll wait for that glue to dry on all 10 of these, and then we'll give it my normal sort of thing of some PVA and a little bit of sand. Okay, the Space Skellies are back from getting a fresh coat of Halford's Grey primer, and they are looking sweet. If anything, that's helped bring out some of the details. So as far as the paint job goes, I'm going to go with something fairly simple. We're only going to basically have sort of 3 colours on these guys. I'm going to do their spacesuits, so that includes the sort of what would be like the metal parts and the fabricy parts that are left orange, and then we're going to do sort of bone colour, and then everything else is going to be sort of black or silver, I think. And I think that should speed up getting them painted as well as make them quite striking. Okay, we have a problem. My orange paint has become one conglomerated ball. The whole thing's just one lump. Let's see if we can revive that, shall we? I'm under no illusions as to why this happened. I mean, these lids are notoriously bad for cracking like this. So yeah, not especially airtight anymore. Hopefully watertight enough that I won't just spray the whole room as I try and mix it. Okay, I've been shaking this now until it doesn't just sound like one lump. I think we have paint. I've got a nice big furry brush here. Now obviously with this being just a normal sort of layer paint, this is the Kado Red Highlight from P3. It's not going to give me quite the coverage I want first time. So I've got like this big brush, I can go put it on. And really get that paint spread around. Long bristles to get in and get all the nooks and crannies. There we go, and that's actually worked nice well, but what I will do is I'll make sure that this is as thin as possible, and then I'll go around and do another coat. So, the immortal words of Duncan Rhodes, the trick is 2 thin coats. And there we go, we have a bunch of set seamer men. This is the sort of thing I'd use an airbrush for if I had an airbrush, but I don't, so an eyeliner brush will have to do. Also, there we go, if you watch more of my videos in the future, you'll now all know what this orange streak's from. So, in between me putting this first layer of paint on and doing a second, which granted has been a day or so, Big Mr Tong, the guy who made these, came up with a second group. These ones are zombies. I believe he came up with these as a direct answer to some of the new units in the Quarantine sort of solo play book that I don't have yet. So we have, these are very similar sculpts, clearly based on the same models, but just zombies instead, and with different guns, slightly less recognisable ones. But as I was already signed up, these didn't cost me any more, so I thought, well, why not? And what I quite liked as well is it came with these ones, which are crawling ones. This guy's legless. So yeah, I'll quickly pop these guys on bases and try and get them to the same stage as these guys. Okay, all my little fellas have been double oranged, and they are looking pretty sweet. I don't know if I showed this guy off. This is a Imitation of Life base that I wasn't using. And this is one of the models out of the set, just a guy in a chair. I'm going to use it as like a little objective or something. It's pretty cool. So now we've got a slightly smaller brush, and we've got some Agrax Earthshade. I'm going to use this sort of all over everything we've painted so far, just to really make all those recesses and details pop out. One of the main areas I am concentrating on with the wash is like around the helmet here, because I really want to get this nice set of clean lines to come out. So, and sort of little sharp edges like down the bottom of this helmet. Okay, the wash is on and it's dry, and disaster has struck. Now this was a brand new bottle of Earthshade bought from the store in person and shaken until it was essentially foam. Now I've never seen a bottle of this foam up so badly, so maybe that's got something to do with it. But these guys have come out rather shiny, and anywhere where the wash has been allowed to pull is gloss. Now there's a bunch of ways. I'm not too worried really. I could go over them right now in sort of Lamian medium or a matte varnish, and that would fix them, but I think I might just do that at the end if it's still a problem, because in theory actually those recesses are not going to get painted again. That's their final colour. And we've got bits on the back there like that, but obviously that panel probably is going to get almost entirely repainted. Anyway, next up we've got another one of my cheap makeup brushes, this time £1 from Primark. Nice fluffy end, and we're using the same orange as we did to start with, and this is going to be sort of a dry brush. And what I'm aiming to do here is sort of bring the panels back up to the sort of brighter colour while leaving all of that shade in the recesses. So at no point do I want to mess with these little lines, for instance. So that shouldn't take too long just to blast through these.
I appear to have lost a clip here, but the next stage is to fill in all of the bone areas and skulls and all those, just anything bony, with some Zandri dust, and that'll give us the base layer for all those parts.
Now I absolutely love this stage because you have a model that was all one colour, and now all of a sudden now you are separating out those parts, and it just takes it from being this sort of, you know, monochrome type thing to actually a painted model. So yeah, I love doing this stage, painting out bits on a single coloured model. It's one of my favourite things about this technique. Okay, I've got through a few of these now, and it is very time consuming to sort of sneak in there and just get all these little bits of bone, like a little bit cracked bit there. It's also kind of tricky in some ways working out what's meant to be skeleton and what's meant to be other bits. For instance, the first one I did, I mistakenly thought this pipe down the back was meant to be the spine. I can see on this one that the model does actually have a spine under there. These bits are actually just some sort of back brace. But because they got nice big chunky details, this is actually quite fun. It's quite a sort of relaxing little job to go around doing all this bit, but it is going to take me a few hours. Okay, we've got all the bone parts painted in now. I'm going to leave the zombie ones aside for now and just get these ones finished. I'm not as keen on these sculpts overall. They're going to be a lot trickier to paint, I think. The sort of different parts are not quite as well defined, I don't think. And they're essentially the same sculpts as these, just an added bits, I think. So yeah, we'll stick with these. I'm going to go for some more Earthshade, and I'm going to give it even more of a shake, because I'm trying to avoid the shininess we got last time. So we're just going to paint this on all the bits we just painted, the bone parts. So darken those down and put all the low lights in. It'll also put more definition against the parts we just painted in the other parts. Not that matters around this gun, because that's going to be painted black in a second anyway. It's so satisfying doing these backs, just going across all these ribs and everything. Just instantly pulling out all those details. Okay, that's done. And while those washers are drying, I'm going to get some warp block bronze, and I'm going to hit the visors. So most of them just have a visor that's up, so you can see their spooky faces, something a bit like that. But we do have one or two with the visors down, and that looks a bit more like that, which is very cool and spaceman-y, I think. It's got that kind of sun shield, blast shield look. I think they are going to require 2 thin coats on these helmets, so I'll water it down and go over again once these are all dry. Okay, that's all the helmets done. These guys are looking super sci-fi with these metallics on, I think, now. And that's really worked. We're going to do one last colour before I leave these for the evening again. I'm going to use some of this Mechanicus Grey, because we're going to go for just a grey, dry-brushed, ashy sort of base, I think, on these. And I think that's what I'm going to use on a lot of my sort of Stargrave based stuff, so they kind of fit in with sort of concrete and sort of moon boards and things like that. So there we have it, something a bit like that to start with. Okay, my second wash is dry, and despite a whole nother round of shaking, it's still come out a little bit shiny, though not as bad as it did on the orange. I think I'm going to just take this whole pot back and get a different one. I'm sure they'll be fine with that. I think the next round we're going to use some of this Menoth white base. So this is a sort of dark ivory type colour. I'm just going to go and individually highlight the tops of all the bones. Still leaving plenty of our Xandri dust and washed areas visible. In some places I'm wiping a bit of the excess paint off my brush, and I'm just kind of doing it almost like a little bit of a dry brush, just because I ain't got time for each one of those ribs separately. I am, however, going to probably spend the time and do the fingers, each bone on those separately. I also spent the time to do the teeth all individually. Spent a lot of time just trying to make the skull look really good. I might grab a bit of this Menoth white highlight that sort of works with it quite nicely, and just do the edges of the teeth. Yeah, like that. Subtle, but I think that works alright. So yeah, we're basically taking them from there to there. Next up, I'm going to take some of the black. I'm going to block out the areas I want in black. So these guns, it's going to be one main bit. Something a bit like that. I'm also going to do these tubes. Any of these sort of ridged tubes, I think I'm going to do black. Hopefully I won't regret this, because they look pretty cool. I like the contrast we got with the orange there, but I think they're going to look better grey. And all these various other pipes and doodads, I think I am going to keep those orange, am I? Maybe. I don't know. This one's got a pistol sort of top here, so I'm going to block that out in black as well for now. Yeah, I think that is quite a nice set of contrasting things. I'm still not sure about these little pipes here. Here we go, I'm experimenting with a few bits of blue. Colour theory tells me that should be quite a good contrast with my orange. And I think that has, I pulled it off, just a tiny little spot colour. Because then we've got the black, orange, bone, and orange in the belt there as well. So we've got a nice little varied section of different colours. And I think that's all the base colours blocked out. So this is as much sort of variation as he's getting, but we still have some highlighting to do. And I've somewhat jumped ahead with this one, so I'm going to have to catch up with the rest now. Okay, so I've pretty much caught up. So we've got all the bone done, and we've blocked out all the black parts, and I've put some little blue cables on them all. Next up, I'm going to look at the black pipes again. I'm just going to use a bit of this Great Coat Grey. I'm literally just going to put like a little sort of stripy dot bit on each of the raised bits of these hoses. Just to add that tiny amount of highlight to them, so they're not just pure black. Once I've done that, I've got a bit of this pig iron, sort of similar to the bolt gun metal from GW. And I'm sort of getting most of it back off my brush, and I'm using that just to pick up the very edges of the guns that they're holding. Sort of bringing those lines out while still keeping most of it black. Same for the ones that have got pistols in their holsters down here as well. Just a real gentle little brush over there, just to peel out the details. And while we're messing with metallics, I'm going to use some of this slightly lighter silver. And I'm going to once again take most of it off my brush again, and then just give the middles of these visors. So currently they're sort of Wartlock bronze. I'm going to give the middles of them just a little touch of the silver. And it's kind of hard to tell because of the reflection from my lamp, but it looks. So I don't know, show you that somehow. But yeah, it adds to that kind of fake reflection as well as being an actual reflection. One of the ones I've gone a bit different with is these two with the wrenches. Instead of doing the sort of dry brush with the metals, I've just painted the wrenches all in one piece. And what I'll do is I'll put a black wash on so you get that kind of effect. And I think we're pretty much there. I think these are looking pretty sweet actually. And they've not taken too much stress. The last step is literally, I prefer a black base rim, so I'm just going to go around and get all the base rims blacked in. Okay, I think I'm going to call them all done. I think they look nice and clean, so it's a relatively straightforward paint job, and I think they look great. I don't think you can tell that these are 3D printed models. I think if you told someone this was a retro metal cast, unless they looked at it closely and saw that there was these deep things under their rib cage, because actually quite complex little models, that you'd know these look awesomely old school. And hopefully my paint job has backed that up. So if you want to grab a set of these for yourselves, check out Mr Tong. Just give it a Google. There's various places you can grab them from, and I'm sure there's some companies out there that'll print them and send them to you as well. And I'll put some links into the description for the Thingiverse and the Patreon as well. So now I just need to get playing some more Stargrave until I get to the Quarantine 37-bit, and I need some zombie troopers. And that's all for this video. Please let me know what you thought down in the comments. Maybe subscribe for more. And as ever, thanks for watching. Bye.